progress.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm just going to kindly give it a minute so that everybody else logs in, and then we'll be able to start with the discussion. All right, I think that's a minute enough. Everybody else will have to catch us as we go. Good morning, everyone, again, and thank you so much for joining our discussion today in celebration of Women's Day, Women's Month even. Today we'll be looking into women in township economies. Just to quickly introduce our different speakers, today we've got Tamiko Sher. Tamiko is a co-founder and she leads the African Institute for Entrepreneurship. It's an NGO that is committed to exploring opportunities created by new technology and industry for African entrepreneurs and enabling entrepreneurship ecosystems. She facilitates dialogues in the spaces between the public sector, the private sector, and entrepreneurs, translating where and how they overlap to grow entrepreneurial ecosystems. Tamiko holds a Master's of Arts in International Affairs, School of Global Policy and Strategy. Also, she has from the University of California, San Diego. She also holds a Bachelor of Science Business Administration from the San Diego State University. She also has a Bachelor of Arts Honors for Creative Writing from the University of Witwatersrand. Tamiko, thank you so much for allocating us some time and welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, Rafilwe. And it's really an honor to be here together with everyone. Happy Women's Day. Happy Women's Month. Rafilwe, it's okay with you. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my slides.
Let's perhaps just quickly go and introduce Masego, and then we'll be ready to start.
Okay, super.
All right. Masego Mayevu, Masego Mayevu stands as a lead executive, a thought leader, and an automotive industry expert extending over 12 years in this profession. As an executive and provincial lead on automotive, aerospace, and defense for the Gauteng provincial government, championing the development of Gauteng decarbonized mobility program. She delivers to the mandate of enabling, facilitating, and mobilizing mobility through multi-stakeholder engagement across the public and private sectors, both locally and internationally. She holds an MBA from the Gordon Institute of Business Science, which specializes in the strategy and entrepreneurship and she studied mechanical engineering at the University of Johannesburg. Masego, if you're there, thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and welcome. You're on mute.
Yes. Yeah, as luck would have it, I'm seeing the flames of technology today, but thank you so much for having me. All right, let me just try and see if I'll be able to beam up my presentation or will there be issues again. And I don't know, I mean, we started with Zoom back in the days. So let me just try. I think let me rather send it to you for now, Refilwe, because yeah.
All right, and then Tamika can go ahead and
challenges.
Okay, so Tamika, you can go ahead and start with your presentation, please.
Great. And Masego, lovely to meet you. I'm looking forward to hear what you're going to be sharing today. Would everyone please let me know if you can see the screen? Is everyone able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, super. So I just want to say thank you again to Seriti for this opportunity to talk to your topic today, which is women in township economics. And it's a thrill to be here. So I'm going to cover off on 3 different parts today. I'm going to share you a little bit about myself. I'm a longtime entrepreneur, 20 plus years. I'm going to share with a little bit about AIFE, and then I'll give you a highlight of our latest programs we're working in. And if there is time for it, we'll share a short video about the drone technology publication that we recently released, which I think is really quite exciting to see. So just to give you a little bit of background, I've been in business for 30 years, 20 years as an entrepreneur. I'm half Japanese, half American, married to a South African. So I am a South African. I've been here longer than anywhere else. And I first came here working for Coca-Cola. I was with them for 8 years in Japan and Southern Africa. Product development, sports events, supermarket sales, strategy, operations. Anyone who's been in corporate knows it's the world's best training you can get. And what's interesting is when I first landed here, my exposure to townships was I was taken straight to Tembisa in 1996. I knew nothing about South Africa, confessedly. And I was walked into a place and said, this is a shebeen queen. And I had no idea what a shebeen queen was. I couldn't understand how someone would work out of a garage, lift up the garage, serve booze, serve Coca-Cola and everything else. And that was my exposure. And since then, I've been into hundreds, if not thousands, of spaza shops, shebeen, supermarkets, you name it, throughout Southern Africa. And I want to say the most important thing for me is I have a really deep sense of appreciation for what people have to do under very difficult circumstances. And then also in my own experience in Japan, and I'll just give you this as a side story as a woman. I finished my master's in Japan 30 years and went to Japan 30 years ago. Very excited, first fantastic job, $11 million budget responsibility, pitch up my desk. Someone comes in and throws a piece of paper on my desk and says, go make copies. So just to give you an idea what it was like in those days. But what I did was I turned around and I had briefing on this before I went into work in Japan. So I said to the gentleman in Japanese, I said, the copy machine is over there. If you would like me to show you how to use it, I'm happy to do so. And since then, no one ever came back and asked me to make copies or serve tea. But there's a lot of lessons for women in terms of how we operate in business. And I think it's really, really important for us to stand our ground and know where we offer our benefits. Today, I'm what I would call a serial entrepreneur. I have 5 income streams. It may sound like a lot, but I've had a lot of decades to build them in. I have an export agency to Japan. I've sold 6 to 7 million rands worth of handmade products. I don't talk about it a lot because I've never made a lot of money in this business, but I've probably supported about 120 different artisans, small businesses, NGOs with up to 500 women. I have a consulting business. So those of you who are in services know how hard this is. It goes up, it goes down, it goes all around. I have rentals. I'll share a little bit about that. My husband and I have built units. I have a jewelry business, and I have co-founded and run an NGO, and I'll share a little bit more about that as well. So I'm really committed. Since I left Coca-Cola, one of the most important things for me was I'm not just in there to make lots of money. Anyone can go out into the corporate world and really carve that kind of niche, but I'm really interested in social impact. And that is particularly for women, for small businesses, for people with disabilities and youth, and for creating opportunities for entrepreneurs in Africa. I am eternally curious. I am getting older. You can see I've got lots of silver hair, but I love to learn new things and I love a new challenge. So anytime a lot of my clients come to me, they give me jobs and they say things I've never done before, and I always say yes. And then I go find resources to help me do it. So one of the key things that we do is as you get older, as you learn that you know less and less. So we embrace collaboration. We recognize that I don't know about a lot of different things. And what I really do is focus on bringing together people who really want to make a difference. So what did I learn from being an entrepreneur? And I'm just going to have a very short talk about it. When I first went to Japan, and you'll see this is a little bit of my catalog. When I started out, no one was cataloging back then. No one was pricing, but no one was taking pictures. I pitched up there. I bought 20,000 rands worth of products. I put them all around the walls because I can speak Japanese. The first gentleman sits down to give me an order, and I didn't have a price list. Here I was all around the world, didn't have a price list. So ignorance is the best teacher. You never forget when you make these mistakes. Also, I think it's really important. Start with what you love. I love making a difference. I love South African arts. I love crafts. If it doesn't work, go find the next thing and the next and the next and the next until you get something. Also find out what you're good at. If you're not good at something, work at it till you are. I have a commercial pilot's license. I'm not very great with math, so I'm not very good with science, but I love it. So I kept working at it. I failed the exams twice. It took me about 3 years, but I finally passed it. I have a commercial pilot's license with an instrument rating today. And don't depend on any one thing or any one person. These are 20 years, 30 years worth of experience coming in. Perseverance is everything. If you fail, I don't even think of anything as failure. You just pick up and you look for the next thing. It's part of the cycle. We always say in aviation, and I've been flying more than 20 years, every 10 years, you're going to have an engine failure. So when you're an entrepreneur and you have your engine failure, what are you doing to pick up and get ready? Because it's going to happen. Do you have money in the bank? Do you have resources to help you out? Look at where the needs are. Don't look at what's easiest. I have a lot of friends say to me, well, I want to start a little business. I can bake. I make great cakes. Everybody loves my cakes. Well, it's you and 10,000 other people. Where are the needs in the market? And how can you go about helping those needs? They are not usually the easiest ones. Be eternally curious. Always learn something new. I think right after this, I'm taking a course on mental health and how I can work with people who have mental health issues. Ask questions, meet new people. I go out of my way to have coffee with people, go meet people. Think outside your neighborhood. We may be talking about townships today, but your markets are not only in the townships. Your markets are all over the world. Go beyond the markets. Think about your market as being this enormous place, and where do you want to be? Another thing that's really critical, a lot of my friends in entrepreneurship say, hey, I'm not good with money. I say, I don't buy that. Be friends with money. Get good at managing it. My Japanese mother used to say to me, every woman must have what she called oheisokuri. Oheisokuri means the lint of your belly button. You must always have this little bit of fun somewhere on the side for that day that things are not working out. And also you must be digitally adept. If you're like me and in my generation, it's hard to be digitally adept. Go find a 10-year-old, go find a 15-year-old, go find a 20-year-old. Don't be afraid to ask, and ask 5 times over if you need it. And the last point on that is don't let anyone tell you you can't do something. I have been told so many different times, you cannot do this. And I just think to myself, that's what I want to do. I'm going to go do it. On the right-hand side where you see these pictures, that's my jewelry business. It started out with me making simple key rings and hello? Oh, and today I am I'm not sure where these arrows are coming from, guys. And today I'm selling to the Smithsonian Museum of African Art. And we've built cottages on our property. So let me talk to you a little bit about AIFE. Okay, AIFE, the African Institute for Entrepreneurship. We are a nonprofit research and thought leadership organization. In my audience today, I saw Jubilile has joined us. We focus on high quality research. We found there is a need in the market for research on the continent that focuses on opportunities. The three of us together have over 80 years of experience, and our focus is new industries, new technology, and new approaches. We want to look to create jobs, businesses, industries, and develop economic growth. So who are we? We are a group. There's 4 of us on the board. Jabalile is here today. We've got Dr. Sidiso Thomasane and Paul Coelho, who is from Namibia. And then we have a very nice panel of an advisory panel. And today I've got Vinny here, Justine and Zanelli as research assistants and coordinators. We also work with an extensive network of collaborations, partnerships, and skilled outsourced partners. You don't have to have a traditional business with 100 employees. You can look at lots of different ways of running a business and an organization. We align ourselves to the United Nations SDGs. We focus really on the identification of future trends. Remember, I said I'm curious. I love to learn new things. I don't mind if I know nothing. And we look at what's different from us, from someone like Seriti, is we look at the intersection between public, private, and entrepreneurship, and Seriti focuses on communities. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to share with you a bit about our drone research. So when we went into drones, we really believe that drones are going to change the world. And I'm going to show you a little video coming up soon here, where we think of tomorrow, we will all be sitting here and there will be someone going and taking a drone from OR Tambo and going to their hotel. We will see medicines, we will see blood, we will see all kinds of materials being dropped from all throughout the country and all around the continent by drone. So why did people say to us, why did you look at this particular industry to start off your NGO? And our NGO is less than a year old. We really believe technology is the driver of future economies, and that the industry has the potential to be a major economic driver and create jobs in South Africa. And what's really important and close to our hearts is the need to build socioeconomic impact. So we think this is an industry, and if you look at traditional aviation, women are not in aviation. It's a hard industry to be in. It's an expensive industry to be in. And we think that drones are a lot less expensive and a lot easier to get into, and that with the right resources, the right infrastructure, and I'm sure my colleague is going to speak more about this in her area, infrastructure, stakeholders, investment, we believe that this industry has the possibility to be an equalizer if it's designed properly. And then I'm just going to share with you my last slide, which is what we're doing going forward. AIFE focuses on 5 key areas. We are in research and training of young researchers. You'll see probably next year, we're going to launch a program in this, thought leadership, ecosystem facilitation, publications, case studies, and entrepreneurship initiatives. We have funders who come to us and say, I'm looking for entrepreneurs. I want to put money into them. And oh, by the way, in my publication, you'll see I've handed over this to Refilway. We have an entrepreneurship study, which has every single resource you can possibly imagine in terms of funders, incubators, places where you can tap into to find resources, and that is available free. We shared that with Seriti, and as well our publication, a link for the publication. So our focus really now is we are now going into what's called UTM, which is the next level up on drones. And you'll see a short video that will show you some of the possibilities. We're in discussions to finalize a project with Telkom in FinTech, Health Tech, and EdTech. And we go forward, and we are currently doing a project with the South African Reserve Bank on the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact. And our focus is collaborations, partnerships, new technologies, and new projects. And with that, I'm going to wrap up and turn it over to my colleague, and just say that we're really honored to be here. We're really honored to be able to share about ourselves and what we do. And we think that the work that Seriti does in the townships and beyond is really, really critical, especially for women and supporting women as we go forward. So that's my presentation. And I don't know if you would like us to show the video or if you would like us to move on to your other colleague.
I think maybe let's have a look at the video now.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Tamika, for that. It was very interesting. And the question, I guess, would be what is next for South Africa, but also of key interest to me and maybe everybody else would be, are women aware of opportunities available to them in the drone industry? And maybe also what kind of participation are we seeing coming from women in the industry?
Thank you very much, Rafilwe. No, the numbers are still very small, but there's problems far beyond just women being in the industry. There are regulatory issues that are holding this industry back. There's only 3,000 registered pilots. It's still very, very small. So, but I think what's exciting about an industry like that is Unlike standard aviation, it's much easier to get into the drones, and then the options to get into drones go far beyond being pilots. You can be on the flight planning side. You can be on the organization. You could be the one packaging the humanitarian aid packages and doing the flight planning. You could be a technician. You could be a person creating drones. There are so many, if you are in the software and the coding side, there's going to be deep need for analytical skills. So the options for women are enormous. So I would encourage everyone to follow up with you following this presentation. We have 124 publication with every resource. In South Africa, it's probably the best publication on the continent that will give you the names of every single training organization, every single resource, every tech incubator, accelerator, where you can get funding. So the same way we did the entrepreneurship study, the drone publication, if you download, you will have to go and register to download it. Please, we will ask your support as an NGO. But once you have, you will get resources to every single options that there are, and you can read through and see where those opportunities are. And I encourage everyone to do so.
Thanks, Tamiko. I will share it on the chat also as we continue with that discussion. Masoko, are you ready for me to share your presentation?
Yes, I'm ready. As long as you share it, the challenges. Don't expose it too much. Thank you, Tamika, for that was such an awesome presentation. Funny enough, at the War Room, we are dealing with drone industry. Lady Ref, can you please just put it in presentation mode for me?
Just now.
Today's not our day with technology, but women are awesome. We can just forgive ourselves. So Refila, can you, at the bottom,
You want
there's, it says no.
Oh, here.
Yeah, full screen. Thank you. Okay. So thank you so much again. It's such an honor and a privilege to be joining Seriti Talks. And I know that my esteemed colleagues have made this platform before. I think the CEO of Gauteng Economic Propeller has been here before, talking about the Township Economic Development Act and all the great work that they are doing. So my name is Masoko Mayevu, as previously introduced. I come from an entity called the Automotive Industry Development Center. We are a subsidiary of the Gauteng Provincial Government, and we belong to the GDA, which is the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency as well. Next slide, please. So we've actually been set up as an agency that focuses, our mandate is purely automotive sector, both upstream and downstream, and anything else that happens in between. All right, and today's topic was women in the automotive sector. We are not doing very well. There's a recent, I think it was released maybe like 5 days ago or so, about women and the representation within the automotive sector. I think to everybody else, it's mind-boggling because in the different, be it TVET colleges, be it university, we're churning out these numbers of engineers, of technicians, etc., but we are still largely underrepresented within the workforce. It's a global stats. So from the workforce within the sector, we only account for 47%. And within the OEM employment, being manufacturing, with either components or actual vehicles, we're just 24%. And within the retail part of the business, it's even worse. Within the dealerships, it's 18%. And this is a far outcry because we know very well that as how it's documented within the FEI, unfortunately, the last publication that I'm most familiar with is the one that was done 6 years ago. And we all know that unleashing power of female entrepreneurship can have such dynamic effect on our country's economy. And you ask yourself that, but If we were number 36 6 years ago on the Female Entrepreneurship Index, but currently when you're looking at the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, it says that, well, gender parity from entrepreneurship perspective, we are great. We scored very highly, which is 0.7%. But we know that within this sector and within South Africa in itself, and I think we shouldn't be shy, there's a lot of people that, or female, that appear on the CIPC, but they're not really involved in this business. There's still this stigma, there's still this disinterest from women within the sector. And I think they shouldn't be. And agencies such as the AIDC, we've been set up to grow the sector. And we, if anything, we are pro-women. If anything that you can accuse us of, we're pro-women. So we're saying to most women that if you have issues, the AIDC is that entity that's there to hold your hand. Next slide, please, Rafula. As I've mentioned, that we belong to we are a provincial entity. So our strategy is the GGT 2030, which is the Growing Gauteng Together 2030. Everything that we do for the province is underpinned by this. And automotive is one of the 10 high growth sectors that have been identified as having a key focus. In fact, our MEC, Honorable Park Stow, has set up what we call the War Room. And the War Room looks at, creating catalytic projects. I think we can remember the last catalytic projects that we had, the Gautrain, for instance. It came from, GDA at the time. There's now one that came from the AIDC at the time, which is the Tshwane Automotive SEZ that's there in Silverton. There's now the Tshwane Automotive City, which is, over 50 billion rand project itself. But if within that, within everything else that we're talking about, the sector, we are not doing it exclusive of women. In fact, when you look at how we've underpinned how it is that we aim to achieve this growing Gauteng together, and I'll take you to how we intend to do it. It's through the multi-tier SEZ or special economic zones that will, of course, yield jobs and obviously economic yielding or enabling infrastructure. But in the heart of it is the Township Economic Revitalization Action Plan. And this is why I'm bringing this into it, because as the Gauteng province, we do realize that the townships were the tool and how we spatially engineered. It was a tool to create all these things, so systemic that we're seeing today. And we heard Tamika also mentioning it about Shabin Queen. So we really had to fend for ourselves, Tamika. We really had to just do by. And I'm going to go into everything else and how we intend to do within the township space and with women in the sector. So the intention is to have a structural growth plan for the Gauteng economy, focusing on those 10 high growth sectors with a social compacting approach. If you are aware, and I think you can Google it, there is what we call, and it's a Gauteng first, hey, the Township Economy Development Act. And the Township Development Act seeks to say that we are demystifying township business. We are addressing the issue about licensing of township businesses as well. And it also goes into de-risking investment for township businesses as well, because anywhere else you know that you would have to jump through hoops. They would say zonal and all these other issues, and that's what the Township Economic Development Act, amongst other things, will or does address. And through all of that, we intend to reduce the Gauteng's unemployment to 15% by 2030. There's very little time left with a 2.9 GDP growth rate. Next slide, please. I think maybe there's a delay on my end. Oh, thank you. So as I've mentioned that the AIDC is the response by the provincial government within the automotive space. We have projects that deal upstream and downstream. and in the manufacturing space. And I'm happy to announce that we have female representation throughout. And I'm going to touch on, the automotive supplier park. If you're a female, manufacturer, there's space for you within the automotive supplier park. We can even talk you through investments. We can even talk you through, even finding space at any of the special economic zones. And we know that there is special concessions that make these special economic zones an ideal place to be located in. In the interest of time, and not to bore everybody who's here, I'm not going to go into it, but I think that if you, I saw Shadi in the chat, so she'll put our AIDC link up there. Should you want to find space within the park, understand how it works, you'll be there. I'm going to speak or focus mostly on SME development. That's my forte, but women, women development. Can you go a bit up first? Sorry, thank you. Ref is in sync with me. See, she's seen the slides. But so we have Township automotive hubs. We have one in Winterveld. We have another one in Shamdo. We have incubation projects. There's one in Ford. There's one in Nissan as well. And then we have within the skill have a Gauteng Automotive Learning Center. We have a trade test center as well, all located within the AIDC. And within the incubation programs, we've had about 2 cohorts now that have graduated. These are ordinary men and women. Let me focus and be a bit selfish and focus on the women. We've had ordinary women with experience within the automotive space that had businesses that we've assisted them to create. They're able to then manufacture components that go into your Ford Ranger. They've made components that go into the Nissan in a world that's seen as not a woman's world. But the AIDC has come in and assisted, these businesses. And now they've gone out, they've graduated, they are independent. And we don't stop, once you graduate, we don't stop the hand holding, through the many programs with your UN women, etc. We continue the journey because business, as Tomika has even mentioned, it's a lifelong journey. It's not an event. You iterate and you grow throughout. You have to pivot and so many other things. So yes, we even in this current cohort between Nissan and with Ford, there is women, Black-owned women that are within this program. And within the Township Automotive Hubs, so within the Township Automotive Hubs, we have women-owned businesses, and some are in the chat. I'm happy that they're here, that are qualified. Qualified artisans that run these businesses. But over and above, in terms of our Township Automotive Hubs, what we are intentionally doing as well, because we understand that, we want the economy within the township to thrive. Even our spending in and around, be it we need catering, be it cleaning, be it waste, it has been women-owned businesses, and they are creating employment in their various township. But over and above, what we also do, focusing on the actual beneficiaries of these township hubs, we also, as we not only provide just training, but over and above that, we also discuss that issue of market access. Because if they don't have market access, if there's no wealth creation for the SMEs, then we can't start discussing job creation and everything else that are the spin-offs that we want to see a thriving township economy. So one thing I've always never understood about why this, women are not fully represented in this, because these women, like I've mentioned, they're fully trained artisans. So they've gone through, back in the days that call it the red seals, but they've gone and they've properly qualified. There is no test for women. There is no maths and science for women or men. It means they have, shown themselves worthy. But when it comes to business, we tend to hold ourselves back as women, which is something that I don't quite understand. Because if anything, we've shown ourselves more than, to be just as, if not better. I was going to say just as good. I think we're far better. Next slide, please. Okay, allow me to focus as a theme of today on township and rural automotive hubs. I think I've already gone into it, so I'm going to summarize it very quickly. So as the Gauteng government, what we realized is that based on how, the spatial planning, all townships really were meant as just labor pools. And even from an economic infrastructure, they weren't there. And that's why, legislation that we've come, such as the Township Economic Development Act, it speaks about township enterprise zones. So how do we go back and create intentional? Everywhere else, yes, in the industrial areas, there'll be special economic zones. How do we solve for attractive investment, infrastructure within the township? What says to an Amazon that you must, find your place within the township, etc. And hence, township enterprise zones were created. But over and above, I look, there's a leg within our holdings company, which is the enterprise management office. They focus solely on infrastructure development. I focus on the human beings in the business, so allow me to focus on that. But yes, the Gauteng province is on a drive to revitalize all the township industrial zones and to find linkages and places for our people to be able to work in. And in that way, we solve for the SME exclusion that's there. We solve for that, missing formal, informal linkages, and we solve for that debt capital that's there in our township communities. And I think for a lot of people, when they view our township businesses, they think it's philanthropic. They think, oh, it's a nice to have, let's assist them. They're not seeing township businesses as viable businesses that, one can invest in. And I'm proud to say some of our strategic, stakeholders within this space, such as your AITF, such as your NAMSA, etc., they are seeing townships as full of potential. They're not seeing it as philanthropic. They're seeing it as untapped potential. And as the AIDC programs work to unearth and to sharpen that talent that exists there. And through all of this, what we intend to solve for is wealth creation for township entrepreneurs. I'm not going to shy away from it. I think people believe that, in the township, just train them, they'll be fine. Just train them. Our people have been trained to death. We're talking wealth creation because that's the only way we are able to then create jobs. If my business can only sustain me, that means the job spillovers just end up with me and my family. But if the business is sustainable, it grows, you're able to then create jobs within the community, and you can create jobs at different levels. So that's creating that skill diffusion. And within that, you also want, we want you to be too big for our township hubs in such a way that then, there's spatial regeneration and local economic development, that you're able to then say, I'm spreading my wings over and above this. And intentionally at the end, we want sustainable business models that investors can realize their fair value in. And you see women representation is there, guys. I'm intentional about it. So there's nothing like township or automotive business is for men only. Next slide. So this is like my baby. We started with this one. I love it. I love all my projects the most, but this one, because it was the first. And it's the one that we had to fight with the likes of the insurance sector. We had to fight with a whole lot of people to stop seeing us as just, philanthropic, but to see it as a viable business. And the wheels are turning. So, for the pilots, yeah. Okay, I'm getting a bit of feedback, but anyway, that's fine. So I'm going to wrap up quickly here. So what we did before we went with all our programs within the township, what we do is we do a scanning exercise so that whatever we implement there is bespoke to that area, but it answers what the community requires. So what is it just me getting the feedback, Ref? Okay,
we're losing you here and there, but
so what we did within this, are you losing me?
Continue.
Okay, all right. So within the Winterveld Enterprise Hub, it's a shared model space, and what happens is that all the different SMEs are able to then make use. There's nobody who rents, so it's on a shared model basis. And the idea is that if you only pay as how much you work. That way, if you, because we know this business is very cyclical, and the intention was that it should not be cumbersome, but it should not also. We were trying to solve for otherwise, if they could afford such space in this cyclical terms, they would have one. So you're able to then make use of the space as and when you require. All right. And so before we leave this one, I think tomorrow you'll be having two of the other ladies that are there, some of the business, the business owners, the female business owners within this space. And, what they have done over and above this, they ensure, I love hungry business owners. I think most of the time when we join this space, women want to come in and say, but I'm a woman, and we start being apologetic. These women are hunters, and that's what an entrepreneur is. You find this with all these different, you find them with the different insurance bodies, you find them because, they understand that without that market access, their businesses will not be sustainable. But us as the AIDC as well, and platforms such as Seriti, we are able to then also amplify their stories and celebrate them more. Can we go to the next slide as well? All right, and within the Chamdo Automotive Hub is very different from the Winterfeld one, and when Chamdo, from an interest within the community, has been one that has even overwhelmed us, because we'll need to then start extending it to the other areas, because we have received overwhelming interest, and the space that we have refurbished is not enough. And I'm also proud to say that within within this space as well, there's female-owned businesses, in the tire space, and they've been running this for over 10 years. And they're saying, well, we're glad that there's such a program, or there's such infrastructure by government. Actually, the tire equipment that we have there, I still stand corrected that it was fitted in 2018, but to date, it is the most advanced within the sub-Saharan. So it's the best. We imported it with our international partners. Italy has taken a very interested role as a stakeholder in this. They've actually, every time I talk to them, they want to understand how the people in Mogale have the businesses started, flourishing, etc. So yes, within these different spaces, not only do we ensure that they are accredited with the industry bodies, etc., but the equipment is second to none. Because we want to expose our people to that while we are still doing that business mentorship and all those other things related to the business. Can we go to the next slide, Ref? And then there's another one as well. And I have to mention it because this is where we find there's a misconception that women are not part of this. So a little bit of a good story. So when I discussed the first time, there was a pilot project that we were doing with the Alexandra Taxi Association. And I had to then go and discuss this. And, I'm thinking in my head, because you played this scenario in your head. Who am I going to see? Who am I going to meet? And I was pleasantly surprised because women are sitting at the table. They were not there as plus ones. They were as, taxi owners, represented through your Santaco, your ATA, your Amstra. The women are there. So what we are doing in this one within the AIDC and with the project, we have private partners such as, through the PPGI, we have Toyota, but through also our infrastructure as the AIDC, what we have realized is that the taxi sector or the taxi ranks, with the ambition of changing them into economic nodes, we are saying that, but taxis themselves, they ferry the economy of South Africa. Most of our people get to and fro on, taxis as a choice. And there's been many research done that people prefer taxis. They prefer taxis over buses and all other sorts of modes of transport for various reasons. And we said ourselves, considering the size of this sector as well, and it's also an automotive sector, we need to do something with them. So what we are currently doing is, going through the process of ARPL and creating all those different people that are fixing these vehicles, creating them as SMEs so that they grow themselves as well. And what we want to see, traditionally, the people that we see that are working within these within the taxi sector as repairers are mostly men. We want to start seeing, young women and women in general coming through as well, not just as owners, but also within the different value chain as well. So that's one that is quite interesting for us as well. And I think for me, the taxi sector is one that is quite interesting for me, because now when we're starting even talking decarbonized, value chain, they're the ones that, you and I, we drive to work, our car stops until we go back home again. For them, they are time. So if you're talking about a green economy, or taking care of the environment, etc., that's a conversation that we need to start having with them. And they are they are very pro the decarbonized economy. And there's even a pilot that we're doing with Sasol and Industria, etc. So yes, that's one of the projects that we are doing as well. And Bureba, they are really pro women involvement within the taxi sector as well. So I felt I needed to bring it in as well as opportunities that are there for women-owned businesses or women within the sector. Can we go to the next slide? All right. So I'm going to also summarize this very quickly. So over and above all those other things that I've mentioned, there is an intentional development or interventions for industry within the automotive space that are there, that I feel that women within this sector must know about. We have the special development project. It's our Google think tanks within the AIDC. The topics such as the battery electric vehicles or the conversions, etc. We start discussing it within this department. All the SEZs and all these, they start being those crazy projects within this department, and then they become standalone projects one day on their own. Supplier enterprise development programs as well. So within that, in order for you to be competitive globally, to be able to to play in the global, or to even start thinking about, going, taking advantage of the AFTA and all these other different trade deals that are there, you all go, etc. You need to have efficiencies within whatever your business is. Whether you're repairing cars, whether you're manufacturing products, etc., you need efficiency, and that's why this program and this department is set up. We work with different businesses, etc. And then our business, our automotive sector has definitely changed. I think there was once upon a time when battery cars and etc. We didn't think that would be a conversation for Africa. And there it is. This is where we are. We know that as South Africa, we export majority of what we make within South Africa to the UK, and because they have shifted, from a geopolitical conversation, we also need to change our value chain. But now it talks to a different skills, demand. Do we still need mechanical engineers? We don't know. Do we still, because now cars will start being lighter. They will now, start being, carbon, and all these other things. So, skills and development, but also from a development and continuous improvement perspective, skills and development and training is very important. So we do it for both the private sector, we do it for the public sector, we do bespoke programs, etc. But within the Gauteng Automotive Learning Center as well, that's where you can find interest there as well. We work a lot with the OEMs. Sorry, can we go to the next slide, I think, yeah. All right. So basically, those are our contact details. I think also Shadi would be sharing something on their chat as well. From the AIDC, we have not just the AIDC itself, even at our holdings company, there is, you know, efficiency improvement programs with Productivity SA. We are pro-women. You know, the presidency last year also, like I've mentioned, they've also, they launched the Women Economy and, you know, Automotive Industry Transformation Fund, which is a 6 billion rand fund. Our stakeholder as well, they said that, no, they then pledged that 30% will go to women-owned businesses. There is lots of opportunities within, and ourselves as an agency that's set up for your development, for the industry's overall development. We are saying there's lots of opportunities for women. Don't struggle on your own, whether you find yourself in the upstream, whether you find yourself within the township, whether you find yourself as a interested or budding you know, entrepreneur in any of those, you know, different spectrums. The AIDC is there for you. Just contact us and let us link you with the right people. Let us do those necessary gap analysis and let's see how we can grow it, because I'll echo the very same words that I said at the beginning of the first slides. To empower a woman is to empower a nation. And if we have women meaningfully represented, not the window dressing thing that we see, we believe that our economy will change for the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Masego. That was quite insightful. And yes, we'll be having Mashadi and the other lady on the next Seriti Talks, where we'll be hosting it next week, Wednesday. But now just to rope in about Vusizwane, please tell us what role is Seriti. Vusizwane is a program lead for Seriti's Township Economic Development Program. What role is Seriti playing in the township economies, and also more specifically around women?
Thank you, Refilwe, and thanks to Tamiko and to Masego, and good to see you again on this forum and the wonderful things that you are doing. So, Refilwe, I was hoping that I will have a one-pager that we share on the screen in terms of what we are doing at a practical level as Seriti. However, what I will do immediately is that Seriti, for those who are new in terms of these discussions, we have been an implementing partner to the IDC last year and a bit of this year. We implemented the Anders Fund. If you remember, there were Anders in Gauteng and a bit of KZN. We were a grant, we dispersed grants to businesses that are affected by those business, by the unrest. And we supported 148 businesses overall. And out of those, 49 were women-owned businesses. And out of those 49 women-owned businesses, we saved 143 businesses. That's at the practical level. Two, we as Seriti do two things. We involved in the township enterprise development, and we also have the township ecosystem development. And this Seriti talks about Tamiko and Masego, primarily, you know, the ecosystem development, working with similar players like you know. And there are two things that are key for us in terms of the ecosystem development. One of those is to build nodes and sectors that can become vibrant and active. And hence, we invited you, Tamiko, in terms of the things that you're doing, and Masego also in terms of the automotive sector, because some of these things are about breaking stereotypes. You know, Tamiko, initially you said you were asked to make coffee 30 years ago. And unfortunately, I don't think, and there hasn't been, there's not much change based on our experience. Women in businesses are still being asked to do menial things, not to be at the forefront. So part of what we're looking at in terms of building those nodes and the sectors that are vibrant and active, is to work with people like you, Masejo, Tamiko, with your export and import side of the business, the arts and craft. We've got lots of businesses that we've supported in those in those sectors. The other area that is of importance in terms of ecosystem development, is those nodes and sectors within the township economy. Masejo, you spoke about hazards, the special economic zones, the hubs. We're looking at working with you closely in terms of supporting you there, with a focus on women development, across market access, access to finance, access to skills development, and general access to support. So that's what we are doing in terms of the ecosystem development work as Seriti. Refilwe, I don't know if I must continue or I must stop there.
I think if you have anything else to add, then you can continue. Otherwise,
Okay.
I have questions.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other element of our work, is on the township economic development as well, where we're looking at assisting the business to become more competitive, accessing markets. I think Tamiko, Masejo, and all participants on this forum know that there's serious issues of market access for township owned businesses. And I want to encourage us that township enterprises are not only the hawkers, the informal businesses. There's all kinds of businesses in the townships, that we need to look at, automotive, a bit of IT, and across the board, So we're looking at supporting those enterprises, but also to help those enterprises to increase their turnover, and more importantly, to job create employment across the sectors, And as I close, I want to quote what Masejo just said now, that township economic development is not about philanthropy, it's a business imperative. We need to start looking at township economies as a business imperative, opening doors that were initially closed, creating of jobs, skills development, and much more. Thank you, Refilwe.
Thank you so much, Bravosi, for that. And just maybe to rope in Tamiko, in terms of township businesses or township economies, how would you suggest that a business that is based in the township would be able to get access to international markets, or markets with not only limited to within their reach?
Rafil, maybe you can help me out to understand, are you talking about a service business or a product business? Because it's very different for the two.
Let's quickly go over the both of them.
Okay. If you are in, and it varies by sector, let's just start with a product business. So let's say you are making an art and craft, because that's something I'm very, very familiar with. In fact, I actually buy from a company in Soweto called Shwe Shwe Poppies, who's been exporting all over the world for about the last 15 years or 20 years. You first need a local market. So you first need a viable product that can sell locally. You must test the market with your local product and make sure you refine it in the local market before you take it internationally. And I would say that with any kind of product or service, if you can't sell it locally, there are companies who do sell only internationally, but they're the rarity. Sell it locally, get the bugs worked out of it, get your service offerings right, get your product offerings right, get your pricing right. And then once you're certain that you've got a very good local market, then I would start looking at international. And there's a lot of options. DTI offers trade fairs. I think GGDA has quite a few different programs. You can join an incubator. There's a lot of assistance that can help people. But you need to have a local market before you go overseas. If you can't sell it locally, you probably won't succeed overseas.
Got you. Thank you for that. Masejo, I remember at the beginning of your presentation, you gave us numbers in terms of stats of participation of women in in township economies, and usually we used to women being what you may deem as a shebeen queen. She runs a crèche here, she runs a spaza shop there, and ideally men would be the ones that you will find in other sectors where there's actual profits being made. What can be done in changing this? How best can we go about involving women in other different sectors where they can be actively involved?
Hey, guys, it's 2022. It's 2022. We do not need permission, you know? And I believe that we've been our own barriers. And I think I believe that even within the townships, there's far more people that have interest, but they're waiting for somebody to say, come. But we must lay claim of what is rightfully ours. Because, and remember when I went back to saying, within the different things that are being studied, there's no, like this is a lighter test for a woman in let's even accounting. Let's just start with accounting because we have female representation there, in accounting. But you find that accounting firms are owned by men mostly than women. And the question is why? Because the skill is still there. So I think we need to change our paradigm. And that's why I'm saying it's 2022. We need to get our own, and the future is female. And the future is now, and there's no waiting for for somebody to invite you. So the worst thing that anybody can always say is no, but it doesn't take anything from us. It really does not take anything from us. And I think our government has put enough from a legislation perspective, and that's why we're seeing a lot of window dressing, because from a BEE perspective, women-owned businesses carry more because it was supposed to, from a procurement perspective, favor us more. But we became lazy. We just, gave our IDs away and again, went in the background again. But in order for us to have, in any sphere, be it in government, in whatever, come get what is yours. And women within the township, South African women, are more than able. We are more than resilient. Yeah, and I think, and I digress a little bit. Imagine if we had a woman police commissioner, would we be talking the very same things that we're talking right now? And it's because we're shying away from being at the seat of the table, and we're sitting and say, but police do something, GBV, this, that. So yes, the only thing that I can say to the rest of our sisters is that as the Gauteng government, legislation is there that favors you. Just come get what's yours.
All right, I saw Neziswa had her hand up. I'd like to encourage everyone to put through your questions on the Q&A or on the chat so that we're able to have to have your questions answered. And also we have a pulse that's open, so maybe if you could just quickly fill that out through for us so that we are guided in terms of moving forward as to how best we can handle the talks so that they're to your satisfaction in terms of information sharing. Nesizwa, are you able to talk? You would need to unmute yourself. All right, I'm just going to quickly let that one go. Masova, I just wanted to check with you because we oftentimes when we have small businesses or businesses applying for funding for relief, you find that the common thread is that there's no insurance provided for such businesses in our space. How available is this, or what could be the blockages in terms of small businesses receiving insurance to ensure that they're able to sustain themselves should anything happen?
Oh, so are we talking specifically to township or business or businesses in general? So I'll go with business in general. If you do not have consistent market access or income, you will then start seeing this amount that you would need to then pay towards risk mitigation of any kind. as an unnecessary expense, right? And one that plays very closely to what I consider, survival or politics of the stomach, right? You as a small business, load shedding and all these other things, and you have people that you need to pay, and then there's insurance. The first thing that you're thinking when you're feeling the heat is, let me lapse the insurance. I'm a praying Christian, nothing bad will come or happen, etc. But that is, but the important or the most, I think our insurance sector has been one that is innovative in the sense that there are packages and offers that, almost meet every size of a business or budget, yes? But what's still not there, it's from an affordability perspective, but what's still not there is the way that townships in general are being looked at. So townships are seen as risky. So if you have your business within the township, so you from a I don't know what they call that thing with the actual scientists, from a modeling perspective, you are seen as most likely to have, Murphy's Law or whatever else that is unfortunate happened to. And that's why within the Township Economic Development Act, there is in the Township Economy Recovery Fund, there is that something that we saw that we need to have intermediaries coming in to de-risk, to de-risk businesses within the township for this specific reason. Because, when things like this happen, it's our people, it's our Black people that are victims of systematic, and dare I call it racism, because most people within the townships are Black. And within this intermediary funding, intermediaries, there's funding that's then made available, there's programs and products that are then of a fiduciary of fintech that are then made available to these businesses. So if there's anything, rather be underinsured than not insured at all, even though the underinsured is still not a good thing. But the important thing is having that market access that allows businesses to be able to do everything else that's required, paying the UIF of our employees and everything else in time, because business, you never know.
Thank you for that. And that sounds to me like that also provides an opportunity for small businesses or for women in township economies to actually partake as intermediaries in that space. Tamiko, I think my last question to you would be, and I think we lightly touched on it the other time, a lot of the times as compared to men, women struggle in terms of getting finances. This is from both government, public, and even funding organizations. How do women navigate such spaces where, sometimes it has to be a give and take situation for you to actually get your business continuing to run?
I think that's always been a difficult one. I think I've been very lucky. My mother was an executive, and I remember going to her and saying, I want to get a raise at work. And she said, well, she was a boss. So she said, how much do you want? And I said, 20%. She said, ask for 40. So I can't ask for 40. She said, ask for 40, you'll get 20. Sure enough, I asked for 40 and I got 20. So when you want something, double what you ask for, number one. The other thing is ask for advice. Go and find people who are good at it and ask them to look at your applications before you submit them. And don't submit them at the very last minute. I find people are very sloppy with their paperwork. Don't wait to the last minute. Do lots of work in advance. Prepare like you're going. I hear a lot of people complain and say, I can't get money from the DTI. It takes me 4 weeks to get money from the DTI when I do a show. I said, it takes me 3 days. It takes me a week. I said, you've got to make sure that you are putting in the work as if someone is handing you that 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 into your hands. And how much work do you need to make in your business to make that profit? So if it takes you 2 months of work to get that 50,000 Rand of profit, that's how much work you must invest in trying to get the funding. So I think it's a mental state of how you approach the funding and then double what you want. That's the easiest thing.
All right, thank
Don't be
you for
afraid.
that.
I love what Masejo said. Lay claim to what is rightfully ours. Go there, demand it. Don't let anyone sit and wait to tell you, I'm going to pay you next week. I want to be paid now. I'm not going to be in business with you. Don't take on customers who don't pay you. Don't deal with people who promise you things and don't deliver, even if it means less business. Be very, very upfront and be straight and demand what you deserve and double what you want. I found it never hurts.
All right, thank you for that, Tamiko. And I would now like to ask if you could say your last words to us today's discussion, anything that you'd like to say in closing.
Yes, I just want to say that I've been in South Africa 27 years, and I have tremendous respect for the amount of resilience that people have who work in a township setting. And what I often see is a lot of what gets held back is a lack of confidence. You really need to believe in yourself. No one is going to go and do it. No one's going to hold your hand. No one's going to believe in you. I've seen some people doing some amazing things with nothing. So believe in yourself, believe in what it is you want to stand for. Don't take no for an answer. Don't allow people not to pay you. As Busy said, don't make them make you coffee and make copies. Go there and claim your space and stand up and long enough. And if you can endure everything, you will break through, you will succeed. It might not feel like it all the time, but you will. And kudos to all of you who have made those efforts, and recognition for where you have gone and what you have faced. And thank you for this opportunity to Seriti, to Vusi and Rafilwe, and to my colleague Masejo as well, and the rest of the team. Thank you for making.
Tamiko. All right. And Masejo, what would your parting words be to us today?
I think Tamika has said it all, but yes, we, like I've mentioned, women, we are our own barriers we create. And even within the sector, there's, some gatekeepers for women are women, but the importance as well, and I think what I don't want to overlook this, the power of networking, the power of being around people that speak, that sound like you, that reaffirm you. And I understand that it's easy for us to just say, demand what's yours. And I think a bit of, contextual intelligence would be, we show up based on how our history and our background is. Tamika, her mom was an executive, so she's always been a boss, and she's always been affirmed as one. And maybe perhaps where we are in our different spheres, we were told that our limitations are this, all we have to look forward in life is to be somebody else's wife and all those other boring things. I think my life is beyond just that. I'm not here I do have husband, I do have children, but my life is more than that. Let's try and find our own as Black women. What does it mean for us to live a purposeful life with impact? Find a circle that affirms that, find a circle and where you're able to then also share ideas. I think what we don't do well enough as Black entrepreneurs is that networking and genuine. So it is important to share ideas. It's important to have that cognitive diversity, and because sometimes you cave in and think that what you're going through it alone. There's a lot more help in and around. There's a lot more information. Let's share it and let's prosper. We can only build our nation if women are at the forefront, much like how the then dispensation fell. Women were at the forefront. Let's not forget what happened yesterday. And that same power, that same resilience and fearlessness still resides in us. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Bravose, any parting words from your side?
Thank you, Refila. Once more again, thanks to Tamiko, thanks to Masejo. Happy Women's Day, by the way, for yesterday. I'm told it's continuing until the end of the month. So happy Women's Day. And today part of why we wanted this conversation was to begin to say, talk to thought leaders, people that have been in the space, people like Tamiko, people like Masiko, people that are in the space, to begin to not only inspire us, but to begin to say it is doable. So this is part of what we're doing as Seriti, and this is our putting our hands to the wheel. So thank you so much. We continue, Masejo. We want a partnership with you guys at IADC, and we've got the tools, the way to do it. So let's work with you. Tamiko will work with you as well, support you in all your work that you're doing in the township economy and other areas as well. So Refilo, thank you so much once more again. And thanks to everyone who's spent their time with us here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamiko, Masejo, Bravose, for availing yourself for today's discussion. I think it was important. Please do join us next week as we have an in-depth look at activities that women are actually doing in the township economic development space. And also feel free to follow us on all social media. It's at Seriti Institute Alton. Otherwise, we're going to have the recording of this discussion available on our YouTube and all social media sites. Thank you so much again for joining us today. We'll see you again next time.
Cheers, Busi.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Refilwe. Thank you, Masejo. Thank you, Vinny.
Thanks, Tar. Thanks, Masejo. Talk to you. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.